What's up, guys? Welcome back to Among the Fence. I am your lovely host, Aaron, and today we're going to be talking about the album Human Target by the deathcore band Thy Art Is Murder. Thy Art Is Murder started in about 2006. They're from Australia, and Human Target is their 5th studio album. And not only is this band known for being a deathcore band, they are also kind of known for being an extreme metal band, and needless to say, to sum up this album, it is brutal, it is very aggressive, which is to be expected from a deathcore band. It is just old-fashioned, no holds barred, just heavy music. One issue I have with this genre is the choruses that they usually put in their songs are usually coupled with distorted vocals and then clean or more higher pitched distorted vocals. And it goes back and forth between the two within the choruses. It gets very old, it's very bland. It's something that's on every deathcore album that we've heard a million times. But when they do it on this album, it's hard to put my finger on the way how they do it, but it's just different. And it doesn't sound too cliche like it normally does. Another thing that's typical of deathcore or even extreme metal bands is the subject matter of their albums and their music is usually just focused on one thing, and it's always political or something like that. But with this album, they take a shot at almost everything that has to do with modern society. For example, the title track Human Target is actually about China's practice of organ harvesting, which I didn't know, and I probably would not have been able to guess that unless if I looked it up. The track itself is very balls to the wall in typical deathcore fashion. It's very heavy. The guitar riffs are kind of lacking in this track, and also throughout the entire album. It's just very dun dun dun, just over and over again. The blast beats are definitely in this album and in this song. It's not really overdone though. A lot of times it's like the drummer can't think of anything else to do on the extreme metal album, so they just go to town on their bass pedal, and it's freaking annoying. But they don't really do that in this song or this album, and it kind of takes away from the classic sound at the same time, but it makes it sound different somehow without it being like way over the top different. And the lyrics in this song are pretty heavy too, saying kill or be killed, or if you don't pull the trigger, then they effing will. And it just, right off the bat, it's the first song on the album, right off the bat, it just gets you geared and ready to go for what's to come. My favorite song on the album has got to be Welcome to Oblivion. It stuck out to me the most. The song's focus, to me at least, seems to be on the fact that humans are like a cancer to the earth, and we're just genuinely bad for the planet and the environment and society in general. I don't know if that's what it is. I didn't look it up, but from the lyrics, it's just kind of what I took away from it. The song starts out with a metalcore kind of intro and leads into a verse that has this thick, heavy, juicy riff with these kind of wind-chimey guitar melodies, and it goes into a chorus that's super chanty and fun. Welcome to Oblivion was probably the only song on the whole album where I really enjoyed the entire thing all the way through. I didn't like a lot of different parts of different songs, but it was just that. I only liked parts of it. Like, I'd be listening to a song and I'd be kind of meh throughout the whole thing, and then there'd be like this riff or a vocal passage or a drum passage where I'd be like, hell yeah, this rocks, and just kind of go back to be meh again, and then 10 seconds later it'd go back to being a good song and then kind of meh. It's kind of weird. And this album does have a lot of fun songs like Death Squad Anthem and Make America Hate Again, which is obviously a shot at Make America Great Again, and they're just kind of fun, chanty, riot, mosh songs that are just heavy. The lyrics are super catchy and fun, and the music isn't way over the top complicated. It's just a heavy, fun song. And then you have songs like Atonement and Eternal Suffering, which have poetic lyrics, and Eternal Suffering has some of the best songwriting and musical techniques I've heard on this album, and Atonement has one of my most favorite riffs I've heard on this album. It's kind of, like I said, it's kind of weird. Each song has a part that I really liked, and the parts that I didn't like, I didn't really dislike. They just were just kind of there. And then once the cool part came, I enjoyed it. And then once it went away, it was just kind of listening to just whatever again. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that there just isn't really a big variety of riffs in this album. A lot of it's just chugging. It's very kind of basic. It's very generic. It's like, if you think of deathcore, that is just your typical deathcore. That's what this album's going to be. If you take somebody off the street who doesn't listen to deathcore and you tell them, hey, we're going to listen to a deathcore album, this is probably what they would expect to hear. And that's not to say that there's anything wrong with a band fitting into their genre really well or anything. It's just that if you're expecting to hear something new and fresh from these guys, you're probably not really going to find it on this album. I mean, you might a little bit, but don't expect to be really wow like some of their past albums like Hate, which got all kinds of praise. It probably isn't going to do what Hate did for you. Another issue I had with this album, which again, I kind of said it wasn't really that big of a deal, but something I noticed is that it does use a lot of blast beats, mostly on the choruses, which I'm glad that they don't use it throughout the entire song or on every verse, because that would be even worse. But it's becomes a death metal cliche when they do it on every single chorus that there is. You start hearing the blast beats come in and you're like, oh, here comes the chorus again, and it gets old. Like, even if they switch it around every once in a while, it would have been more creative, even a little bit, I suppose. This might be nitpicking it just a little bit, but the vocals on this album aren't really all that wow either. Like, they're good, very, very good for that genre, but they don't really stand out amongst like any other bands. Like I said, if you tell somebody they're going to listen to a deathcore album, the idea of what they have in their mind is probably going to be this album. It's going to be just the generic sound that you would expect to hear. And other than Eternal Suffering, from what I was able to hear, it sounded like they just used a lot of the same musical techniques throughout this entire album. It was a lot of chugs, a lot of arpeggios being played in the background, or a lot of scale runs being played in the background. And it kind of made it hard for me to tell if I was listening to the same song over and over again, or if I was actually moving through the album or not. All right, it wasn't that bad, but it got kind of tiring again. I wish they would have just been a little bit more creative, a little bit more fresh sounding in their songwriting. I think that contributes to how I was saying that not an entire song is really all that good, at least to my ears. It wasn't all that outstanding, but it did have outstanding parts in it that really kind of wowed me. It's because when you're used to hearing the same kind of chugs and arpeggio runs in the background, and all of a sudden this really nice riff comes in, you're like, hell yeah. Even if it isn't fancy and it isn't really all that great, you're hearing something different, so it just sounds amazing. But I wish they would have just held on to those things, those moments, just a little bit longer. And some songs, it only lasts like 5 seconds. Like, you would hear a chorus and then you're like, okay, we're gonna go back into the same verse again, and you're expecting to hear the typical sound you just got done hearing, like a chug, but then you hear this sick riff in a post chorus, and then it goes right back into the verse again, and it's over, and it only lasted 5 seconds, and now you're sad, and you're hoping it'll come back around after the second chorus, but it doesn't, because now there's a breakdown, and the breakdown is exactly the same thing you heard in the last song. It's got the same style of vocals going on in the background. It's got the same arpeggio run, and you're like, why didn't they use that riff more often? Kind of makes you sad a little bit. So basically what it comes down to is this is just your standard run-of-the-mill deathcore album. It's really good at what it does. It isn't really all that flashy. It isn't all that fancy. It isn't fresh. It isn't anything that is gonna really wow you. If you're really into deathcore and you're not looking for any other crazy sounds, like Whitechapel's The Valley has not their typical sound to it, this will probably do it for you. But for me, I wanted a little bit more. I was looking for a little bit more creativity, especially after listening to The Valley and Sea of Tragic Beasts by Fit for an Autopsy. I loved that album. It was fantastic as far as I'm concerned, and it wasn't really all that different from this album, other than the fact that it kind of took a step outside of the generic box instead of staying inside of it like this album did. So with all that said, I gotta give Human Target by Thy Art Is Murder a 6.5 out of 10. It's probably not as low as what you guys would expect after the review I just gave it, and that's because this isn't a bad album. has a lot of fun parts. It's a really fun album, but it isn't really all that spectacular. It isn't going to wow you. It's like I said, it's just your run-of-the-mill standard deathcore. But I want to know what you guys think, because I know there's a lot of Thy Art Is Murder fans out there that are going to think I'm an idiot. So go ahead and leave a comment below letting me know what you thought of this album. If you've listened to it, if you haven't, go ahead and give it a listen. And let me know what you think and what you would rate it. And don't forget to also leave a comment below letting me know what you want me to review next. Maybe your favorite band came out with a new album, or they just released a new single. Leave a comment below letting me know what you want me to review, and I'll make it happen for you. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon so you don't miss out on any of my future uploads. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you guys next time.
I was trying to make it lying